Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Historia Politica Publica. In the episode of today, I'm going to talk about a book which is called Tower. It has been written by Bae Myung-Hoon, a Korean writer. It was published in 2021 in English and it was published originally in Korean in 2009. Recently, I have been traveling to Korea to different cities in the country: Yeonju, Jeju, Seoul, Busan, and Jeonju. And obviously, I wanted to take a book written by local authors. So I bought a couple of them. And in this episode, I will analyze the book called Tower. It is an analogy of the current society in the whole peninsula of Korea, the difference between the north and the south. It's a kind of science fiction political satire. It exposes clearly the inequalities that you can see in Korea. Also, it tells how the different people can feel alienated in a hyper-modern society. And with this kind of format of 6 different episodes, stories that can interlink between them, you can have a grasp about how society in Korea works. So, there are 6 episodes in this book, Tower. Each of them tells the story of people who live in the same place. The place is called Tower, is Beanstalk. This is a huge tower. It has 674 floors, more than 500,000 people living there. So in all the effects, it's like a state, it's like a country. Aside from them, there is a country, another place. Well, in the book they specify that it is not a real country, but let's say a territory which is called Cosmo Mafia, and they are at war with them. In the similar situation as North Korea and South Korea, even though the war supposedly ended in 1953, it was more a kind of armistice rather than at the end of the conflict. And even nowadays, you can see in the newspaper, you can read in the news how still North Korea and South Korea are at war. And it happened here the same. Cosmo Mafia, in the book of Bae Myung-Hoon, is North Korea, whereas Beanstalk, it is South Korea. By the way, the name Beanstalk, I don't think is made with naivety, because Beanstalk, you can translate it as the bean that is stalking you. And South Korea is a country which is highly surveilled by the thousands of cameras that are spread across the country. Is the most safe country all over the world. Some people believe that is for the kind of cultural Confucian idea of the Koreans, in which you have to respect each other, and things like stealing are kind of very few in the country. However, other people believe that this is because there are many cameras in the country. Perhaps it's a combination of both junctures. Apart from that, the book is like the analogy of Korea. You have, I think it's the store 21, the floor 21, you have the demilitarized zone, which is like the line that crosses the parallel 38 in real life, in which North Korea and South Korea were divided in 1945 by the foreign ministers reunion, which had Joseph Stalin, Harry Truman, and Winston Churchill from the Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom, that they divided the whole country. Aside from that, you have in Beanstalk, in Tower, inequalities between those people who are living in the higher floors, which they are the richest people. They have like the biggest apartments, they had garden in their houses, the kind of story is huge, whereas in the bottom floors the houses are narrow, the corridors are very small, and people are living together in smaller spaces. Obviously, if you live in the kind of bottom floors, you cannot reach the top, because this is very interesting in the society of Beanstalk. In order for reach the last floor on top, you need to take different elevators. It's not just you need to take from 0 to 674 with just one elevator, but rather you need to go around, have to pass from security checks. So in other words, this is a kind of segregated society which has been made in order to exploit the masses of people and enrich the top ones. In other words, is a clear metaphor of capitalism. And precisely in one of the episodes, this function goes very clear. It is the episode number 4, which it tells the fights between the verticalists and the horizontalists. The verticalists are those people who believe that people on top must have more rights than the ones on the bottom, whereas the horizontalists, they believe that everybody should be equal. They use this analogy with these elevators, the building, the height of the whole state, in order to mention how the verticalists are like the right wings, whereas the horizontalists are the left wing. This is one of the most interesting episodes. I think is the longest one. It has more than 40 pages, and it tells the story of political factions, how even between the group of the horizontalists there are different alliances, because the main character, who in theory is a verticalist because he's working for the a private company, eventually he falls under the kind of group of the horizontalists. They don't trust him very much, but still it is a very very good story how he wants to be apolitical, but in times of polarization you must take a side. This is one of the ideas present in the book. Apart from that, you have the chapter number 5. I think it's probably the best. This is called The Buddha in the Square, and it tells how the government bought an elephant in order to crush the anti-war movement. There is thousands of people protesting against the war between Cosmo Mafia and Beanstalk. They want peace, they are pacifists. So the thing is, like, because they are unable to kill all the insurgents, the protesters, they take an elephant in order to destroy them. But what happened, that the elephant is a pacifist. He or she doesn't want to kill people, and apparently when the elephant sees a lot of people protesting, starts to meditate. And the main one of the main characters of this chapter believes that the elephant is a kind of Buddha, because he assures that the elephant has in his eyes this kind of Dharma idea, is almost reaching the nirvana. So it's a kind of beautiful book against the war, and I think in a society in which we are living nowadays, it's very interesting to focus on some of the ideas that he points. For example, the writer at the end, he asks a rhetorical question, which is like, when this kind of wars will eventually end, something similar along the lines. The problem is that because the elephant who is going to reach nirvana is being attacked by one of the kind of workers from the governments, and from then on he becomes mad and eventually he has a fatal end. But the thing is, this idea of how the anti-war movement, the pacifism, is being attacked by the capitalism and the private properties and the state as a kind of naive idea. And this is very well illustrated when the worker of the government kicks the elephant to make him or her kill the people. And consequently, the elephant cannot reach nirvana for all this bellicism that is embedded in this society. And I don't want to talk that too much more about the book because I think it's very interesting, well written. The narrative is very interesting. I think the division of chapters is really well done. The stories can be interlinked later on, and you have some reminiscence from one each other. I don't think you need to read it in order, but just to say more, the first one, it is about how three people are trying to investigate a bribing and corruption action taken by one of his leaders. The second episode, it is about a writer who is terraphobic. Terraphobic is these people who live in Benstal who do not want to go outside. They are afraid of walking across the ground, so they cannot leave the building. And yet, this writer is able to depict perfectly the beauty of nature. How does he do that? Well, it is better telling the book, but in this chapter, there is one analogy with the movie WALL-E and how a robot can have soul, or at least people who see this robot believe so. The third episode is about a network of international solidarity. People who do not know each other are able to help as much as they can to save one life. I think the message of this chapter is beautiful in that way, like how people, when you leave them freedom to act, they tend to show compassion to each other even though they don't know face to face. But this is a very interesting idea in that sense. Again, the chapter 4 and 5, I talked of them already. The first one, the 4, about verticalists and horizontalists, and the 5 about the pacifist elephant and the anti-war movement, which this is called the Buddha in the Square. And the last episode is called Fully Compliant. It goes about a terrorist attack that wants to destroy the whole building, the beanstalk, and how the people who planted the bomb 65 years ago when the building was created face some ethical dilemmas, how your own ideas can be crushed when you face reality, and how your political thoughts can be developed along the years. Very interesting for every person. I think it helps to relate the self-discovery that all of us can experience during our lifetime. So just to finish, summing up, this is a political satire. It's a pacifist book which is trying to express how the different group of people can align together in order to create a better society. It's a criticism of the power and the private companies who also in one of the chapters are taking advantage of the fear of people to raise the rent of the building, the different storage, so making it even more segregated. How the refugees go to Cosmo Mafia and they are neglected by that region. How an animal, an elephant, can be the pacifist among the pacifists, and this kind of homage to Buddha, the prophet who taught us how this idea of peace, avoiding war, is fundamental in our society. The number of Buddhist temples in Korea are a depiction of how this idea permeated in society like centuries ago. And just to finish, at the end of the book there are 3 appendix. One of them is particularly brilliant because it tells how capitalism is functioning. You have a coffee shop that is called Beanstalk, Coffee Beanstalk, similar name as the building. And it tells how this small coffee was the place in which the labor unions, the worker people, they used to get together in order to join, create relations, and implement different measures to bring more rights to the common people. But the private owners, knowing that this was a half of protest, were able to destroy this small coffee shop. Not going there and killing everybody, but rather to creating another business, another coffee shops, which were a bit more expensive, but they have more offers, different menus, and so on. And this reminds me how when we tend to travel around the world, And I saw that in Korea there are many coffee shops, small coffee shops, that because they are not in English, you cannot understand what is the menu, and you tend to go to other more famous franchises, which are slightly more expensive, but they have other offers, you know. And obviously this destroyed small business, and this is a huge drama in which all of us are contributing worldwide. So it's very good story, it's very well told, beautiful to understand how the power is working there. In order to this, the book in the appendix is called A Study on 520. This is the number of the floor, and how the coffee bean stock was finally forced to close because it could not compete with the most fancy, more modern coffee stores, which were offering like breakfast, different menus, and even better quality of coffee. The problem of that is that at the end, people did not gather anymore in coffee shops because those were more for takeaway. So the spirit of community, solidarity among people was destroyed, and at the end, in that floor, the horizontalists won the elections. It used to be, sorry, the verticalists won the election. It used to be a place where the horizontalists won every time because there was a kind of bond of common solidarity. However, after the coffee store, the beanstalk was closed, which was the hub where people used to meet, the idea of community was finally crushed, and henceforth only was time for few alienated individuals to live there, individuals who did not meet each other anymore. So hope that you like the review of the tower. Important to understand that this is a critical political satire of society in Korea, but all over the world. And this is a hugely enjoyable read to have a bit fun with some of the chapter, and also other more intense with the pitch better the current society.